my role at the moment, I'm sales director of a company called David Lindley, which was founded by Viscount Lindley in 1985. We still all have the same problems that these other guys have, but I suppose from my angle, I approach things in a very, very different way. So what I wanted to talk to you about today was kind of my journey of how I've got there. Obviously, I'm significantly younger than the other members of the panel. I don't want to go on about that because it's a minor thing. But
for you,
minute's gone, Alex.
Yeah, it's gone. It's all right. It's all right. And so the other thing is, and I'm going to focus very specifically on sketching and design. So it's a subject that's very passionate to my heart, and I'm a bit of a one-trick pony, all things considered. I don't have an awful lot of skills, and I make far more cock-ups than these guys ever did, and I wouldn't even dream of making anything because it would be a disaster as soon as it even started. But a couple of things that I've learned along the way have kind of led me to have quite a fun career. Okay, let's see. Yes. Okay, so here's my biography. So much like Nick, I did a B engine yacht and powercraft design, and one of the first moments where I had a real kind of check with reality is when my mentor and my lecturer sat me down and told me that I was going to be a terrible engineer and that he'd never go in a boat that I designed and that it was just going to be a disaster and my maths was abysmal and every spreadsheet ever did went wrong. And so this was quite a lot to take. But he had seen some of my sketches and he said, maybe you should consider a career in industrial design, which happens to be a discipline where if you've got engineering as a background, you can go into and you can use your more flouncy side, and that might be of use to you. I don't know what you're going to do, but don't do any sums. And whatever you do, don't do anything that's going to make have people's lives at risk, because that would be a disaster. And it's going to take. So I took his advice. I heeded it well, and I went back to Guernsey, where I was from. And much like Nick, I absolutely dreamed of being the best yacht designer in the world. And drawing these flowing lines of super yachts, that's a thing for me, super yachts, and my passion absolutely engulfed me, so I could think of nothing else. My girlfriend was pig sick of me talking about yachts, and I went back to a company, very prestigiously named company called Channel Island Ceramics, which used to sell kitchen tiles, and also did a bit of kitchen design, which is inevitably how we all kind of got to know each other. And I developed a love of selling. I kind of worked on my sketching, which was at that stage pretty average, if I'm being honest, but I just kind of, the whole selling thing, the whole kind of, I enjoyed people enjoying my work and solving problems for them and making things work for them. The whole thing just kind of really made sense for me, and I saved up every penny, and I lived with my parents, which you've not met them, but that's not an easy thing to do for a year, so we did that. My mother insists on cooking roasts every day, it's unbelievable. It's an aside. So I saved up and I applied to Loughborough, which I think there's a little bit of consternation between Loughborough and Nottingham, and maybe Leicester as well. Obviously Loughborough's the best, no question about that. And they just started an industrial design programme, and I enrolled on their masters, and they looked at some of my stuff and they took a chance on me. And I kind of came in with a very, very strict agenda. It was a one-year course, and I decided I was going to design interiors and exteriors of a luxury yacht. And that this was my ticket to the future, and I was going to be the man, and my name was going to be up in lights, and it was going to be amazing. And I really enjoyed the course. I think with any kind of educational process, what you put in is what you get out. I don't think you can rely on with the greatest of respect, I don't think you can rely on your staff to make you good. I think you have to use them as a resource, and then you have to bring everything you can to get the most out of that process. And for me, the difference between my yacht and powercraft design disaster with spreadsheets and my master's in industrial design was quite marked. I kind of found a niche where it worked versus something where I was a square peg in very much a round peg more. Anyway, whichever shape the peg was, the hole was definitely some kind of binary extraction. I don't know. And I came out and I was really lucky because at the end of my master's, my final project was entered into a competition which was judged at the Monaco Yacht Show, and I was lucky enough to win a job designing super yachts in Chelsea. My dreams had come true. I was the man. I felt amazing. My girlfriend was inevitably slightly teased off, and I just told her it was going to be this is it. We've done it. Actually, 6 months after that, as you can see here, I put on my biography, disaster. I was sitting in my pants in my flat that I couldn't pay for, totally depressed. The whole thing had gone completely wrong. I was so full of my own PR that I couldn't see the wood for the trees. I thought it was all about kind of what I thought being a designer was, and I was missing the point in everything. I was missing deadlines. I just wasn't able to do it. And this is kind of a massive thing. I think if I'd have been able to talk to myself then, I'd have just kind of said, you know, take a breath. The same skills that apply to accountants and lawyers and all the other professionals apply to designers. You've got to do the things that make offices run. You know, you've got to meet your deadlines. You've got to do what people ask of you. You know, you can't bring any, you know, ludicrous ego. You can't do it kind of any of these things. And I literally sat down and I had an incredibly cold, hard look at myself and thought, you tosser. you absolutely, you had this big chance, it's all gone wrong. And really off the back of my time at Channel Islands Ceramics, I remembered how much I enjoyed designing fitted furniture, and I'd met Mark Wilkinson through that, and I rung him up and I just said, I'd love to come and work for you again. This is what I've been doing. I think I can bring some skills to it. And they, well, you know, it was great. They employed me, and much like Matt, I had an amazing time. So you know, it was a great place to sell. I was a sales designer, so as the name would imply, I sold things and I designed things, and that was pretty much it. And there were teams of people who could do all the other stuff. It's a very different story to kind of making it all by yourself, because there was an awful lot of just meeting people and having good ideas and trying to kind of wave your arms around and all this kind of stuff. And people, you know, kind of liked it, and I was quite young when I went there, and I was really lucky. So the 2007 recession that everyone kind of waves their arms in horror about, I was lucky enough to just start managing the North London part of the company when that hit, which was great because it coincided with the Arab Spring, and all this money started to just pour into North London, and all these people were doing up houses. And I absolutely was able to buck what was going on, and I wish I could tell you it was through some set of skills that I acquired, but I was just really, really lucky. And you know, there are a couple of things, you know, that do resonate with what these guys are saying. You've got to work really, really, really hard. So the harder you work in sales, especially, the more you sell, and the more you sell, the more you earn, and that's brilliant because your wife. Was girlfriend, now wife, obviously. It's thrilled, and you know, the children can have the pram that my wife's been coveting, and it's where all my money goes. But anyway, so I really, you know, it was a great time, and I really enjoyed it, and I got my first taste of management, which I was obviously terrible at, and you know, the first people who worked for me hated me and resigned, and then the next people did as well. Kind of being able to motivate people is a really difficult thing, and something that I'm still working on. I'm sure there are ways of doing it, but at the moment, you know, work in progress. Anyway, so what happened after the recession? Things were great, selling loads, designing some really cool projects. So on my honeymoon, I was on my BlackBerry in the toilet in our resort, and I closed a deal with Cheryl Cole, and this remains a career high point for me and a marriage low point for my wife. So not so good. It's not so good. You know, and the Prime Minister of Azerbaijan and all sorts of other great people. So it was a fantastic opportunity. So after that, I knocked on the door of David Linley, and I just knocked on the door and I said, guys, you guys have got to entertain the idea of doing fitted furniture. I think the brand and the idea of kind of taking it to another place could be really interesting. So that was last year, and over our first full financial year, we've been able to turn over as a sales-only operation. I think we turned over 1.3 million last year, and our financial year's to July, and so from July to now, we've just had a turnover of about 680. So we've had a really good second year. We've really lucked out on a lot of things. So, for example, we're now doing all the fitted furniture for all the penthouses for Battersea Power Station, the redevelopment of there. I don't quite know how this has all happened. It was all just kind of a wing and a prayer, and kind of it'll be great. And sometimes I think, contrary to what these guys are saying, you've got to really take some risks and do a bit of that. And sometimes if you can convince enough people, then it turns out you were telling the truth. Other times, not quite so much. But enough about that, because that's fairly dull. What I really wanted to talk about was sketching and designing, and sketching and selling, and how the two kind of interface with each other, because for me, that's kind of the thing that makes me so passionate. I wake up in the middle of the night thinking about it, and that's how I articulate my designs, and it's how I talk to people, and it's how I communicate. And I think, for me personally, if there's one key skill that you could take with you from your university time and your training, if you can sketch effectively, and by that I don't even necessarily mean accurately, as I'm sure some of my work will show, just, you know, if you're just kind of communicating emotionally with your work, then people buy into that. But I'll go on to that. So Skills, boring really. So everything's in grey because I thought that would be cool. Apart from the word selling, which is really important because if you, I mean basically I've got some flimsy logic that backs all this up, which I'll go on to. So as far as I'm concerned, all design, everything you do as a designer is selling. You're constantly trying to convince people, you're trying to persuade people, you're saying this is my idea and it's great. And you could have some really, really good ideas. And they can be presented badly, and they'll just never get out of the blocks. And you can have some average ideas and present them really well, and people will think you're great. So my advice is really how you present has a huge impact. And critically, when you look at it from the eyes of the buyer, buying is a totally emotional decision. It's not logical in the slightest. Unless, of course, you're deciding how many oil rigs you're going to buy, that's probably quite logical. And then you're absolutely right, Nick, spreadsheets are very important. But when it comes to pieces of furniture, it's all about how you feel, and it's how you feel about your designer, as well as how you feel about your products that are being presented to you. So the point that I'm really making is the beauty of sketching is it comes from somewhere else. It comes from a different, I don't know about brains, but I think it comes from a different half of the brain, and I think it's much more talking about in an emotional context rather than a logical one. And I feel that's a very, very strong way of winning business and winning people over. And kind of when you're in that awkward situation, let's make no bones about this. Selling is kind of you and someone who's significantly richer than you, and you've got to somehow convince them to give you their money because you've had some great ideas and solved all their problems better than like 6 other people who are trying to do exactly the same, who have been doing it longer than you, who are probably better than you. It's quite nerve-wracking when you kind of deconstruct it in that way. But I think this is kind of, for me, this is the one thing I've done, other than kind of a slight sense of mania, obviously, that I bring to everything, that has kind of set me apart from other people. So that's kind of the whys. One key point I would make, so just to confront Matt, I think that CGIs have their place. They have their place and they always will. And the interesting thing about CGI as a means of communicating is it's always going to get better. But the thing that I'm struck by, and I have done quite a lot of work on this, because I'm really passionate about, clearly, slightly too passionate sometimes. A photoreal CGI can only aspire to be as good as a photo, and I think it kind of caps itself, which is really, really disappointing, whereas sketching can deliver much, much more. When describing an idea, sketching can obviously, you can communicate your idea however you want to, and you can kind of get the point across, so it's very easy to make highlights of the bits you want to highlight. You've got control over what you're showing people. But this is the really important thing, which is what it describes of the author. So things like trust and authenticity and capability, but also, without wanting to sound like a bit of a tit, passion, love and soul. It can all come out in a sketch, and this is really important because I think when you kind of drive that energy, and when you've got that kind of rapport with people and a bit of banter, and it's clear that you weren't doing double glazing one week and then designing some beautiful furniture the next week, people buy into you and they kind of get what you're about, and that's really impossible. And also to people who can't sketch, they've got this weird feeling that they're watching some kind of theatrical magic going on, and you know what, let them think that, that's great. And that's a good thing as well. The whole act of designing something for somebody, the whole act of engaging with people should be a theatrical experience. I think it's not just about nuts and bolts, it's far more about how they feel when they leave, and if people are dropping, who knows, £250,000 with you, whatever it is, they want to walk out feeling great, and you've got to give them more than just a door sample and a bit of granite. You've got to give them some great stuff. You've got to give them all sorts of wonderful feelings. So I think this is the way it can work. Okay, so when should you sketch? Obviously, this is here just so you don't get bored. You can see the ends in sight. It's important. So really, at the top of a project, I think it's really, really important that you. 10. Are we sharing a room? I don't know. Probably best not. 10 half-baked.
Don't have any more coffee.
10 half-baked ideas. 10 half, that are half-formed. That you're just. Well, I was kind of thinking this, but I didn't finish that, and all that kind of stuff. I think it's better than one complete CGI. That's what you're getting. Do you like it or not? Because people just kind of go, well, yes or no. Whereas if you're giving them all of your ideas, they feel they're getting good value. It's quicker, it's cheaper for you, but critically, your clients engage with the process. So they come in and they say, well, I like this, or can we fuse that bit with this bit? Can we bring those bits together? And not kind of closing off the process, not having that weird, I'm the designer, you're the client, listen to me, or get out of my shop, I don't want to talk to you. You've kind of got to bring them in. The whole people want everyone. Possibly a bad audience, but everyone thinks they're a designer. You know, I mean, you are, obviously, I don't know about there's no doubt. But everyone does, and your clients do, and they feel they know what they're talking about, and you've got to you've got to park yourself a little bit and just let them think that, and bring much of them to these pieces. A lot of the pieces we do are very, very personal. People want to bring as much of themselves as they can to the project, you know, and you've got to give them a mechanism for doing that. I think it's really, really important. What else did I write here? So yes, they invited open questions, problem solving, all that kind of stuff. It's great. So how? So there are the cornerstones. The cornerstones of sketching really are practice and cheating. The practice is more important. It's not real cheating. It's not real cheating, but you've just got to sketch every day. So you know, I think style's a really important thing to develop of your own work. I can be a bit obsessive. I obsessed about a couple of guys who are amazing sketchers. One guy called, there's a company called Bannerberg and Rowell, so they're super yacht designers. And I work with some of the guys now quite a lot. And Dickie Bannerberg is the guy who runs it, and a guy called Simon Rowell's their creative director. And I saw his work, and I just thought, this is amazing. So there's some of it coming up. You can see it. It's very different to what a lot of people do. And I took those images. I plastered them up on my student wall. So I just deconstructed his images, and I thought, how has he done that? You know, and I picked my medium, and I tried to identify how things can happen and how he got to where he got to. My work isn't anywhere near as good as his, but I think it's quite quicker. Another great. You know, and so style, figure out your style, use other people, use everything you see. The internet is amazing. I don't know if you've come across it. It's going to take over the world. I think there's going to be a computer in every house in the next 10 years' time. I'm telling you, there will be. And you can go on the internet, and there are all sorts of images by all sorts of designers, and just kind of devour stuff. Find something that really you get that emotional resonance with when you look at it, and I think that's important. Figure out how these guys have done it, and then, you know, bring your own flavour to it, really. And also, one of my lecturers at Loughborough said to me, so you're not brilliant at really anything, but if you spend a week drawing, and a whole week, and you literally pigeonhole out an entire week in your diary, and you're at the drawing board as if it's a job, and you sketch everything, and you find photos, and you find everything, and you just give yourself a week to do it, and by the end of it, and don't use rulers and vanishing points and all that kind of stuff, just draw and draw and draw again. You'll come out at the end of the week 1,000 times better than you were at the beginning, and I did that, and it really helped me. So I think that's a really, if this is something you want to do, I think it's a great thing to do, and just sketch everything all the time. Never stop, really. And cheating, of course, cheating. Yes, that's the other cornerstone of sketching. So you may have come across this notion of vanishing points and drawing boards and projections and all this kind of stuff, and I feel that isn't the way to get a feel for something. I personally use a lot of 3D CAD and photos for all of my proportional work and all my perspective work, and I just print out a lot of block diagrams. Well, here's my workflow here. So I'll 2D CAD to create a space plan, and I'll measure that all out so it works. I'll loft it all up in Rhino, which is a 3D package that I use all the time. And I print it and sketch over and print and sketch and print and sketch until it's passable enough, and I think I can get away with it, and it depends how much time I've got, which is actually the more important thing. And then I tend to composite things in Photoshop. But really, another piece of advice I was given when it comes to drawing is treat every drawing as if you're going to throw it away. And for some reason, for me, this is really important. So assuming you're going to use a lot of overlays and you're going to sketch something and it's not quite right, and you adjust it and then you put another overlay on and trace and trace and trace, I found myself looking back, and the ones where I knew it was a work in progress, my line work was better than the ones that I thought I was going to keep, because I was putting myself under too much pressure. So as soon as I got in the mindset of throwing everything, imagining I was going to throw everything away, I just kind of loosened up and was able to work much quicker and much more fluidly. So that's top tip. Write that one down. A good one. This is a guy, Simon Rowell. So this is his work, and what I really love about it is it's quite cartoony. We're into the example stage now, it should hopefully get slightly more interesting. I do apologise for whittering on. this guy's amazing, you know, and he became creative director of one of the finest super yacht agencies in the world, really because of his capacity to create these amazing images. And these were really my inspiration for my style. Mine aren't as good as this. All of a sudden I feel incredibly nervous showing you my work after showing you his. But I just love what he's done. I love the way he's worked it. And it's using exactly the same workflow. So I rung him up, asked him how he did it, and he told me, and then I learnt all the kind of software elements and learnt how to do it, and that's kind of how I learnt it. But in the fitted furniture industry, when you're designing a super yacht, you've got a bit of time on your hands. You know, there's a lot that's invested in you. Quite often, when you're working on smaller interior projects, you have maybe an hour to put a whole presentation together for a project that may retail for £100,000, and that's just the reality of it because you're on site fixing a drainage problem, or you're dealing with somebody's tiles, or you're sorting out somebody's curtains, or whatever it might be. You don't have as much time as you'd love to have, so you need to be really, really efficient to be effective as a designer. So really this into my work, super quick, this took an hour, just again, Rhino model, 3D CAD, and then just sketch over the top, really, really quickly. That it doesn't really show anything. That's the great thing. It's a wine room in a showroom, but the great thing is when we make things from these, clients don't come back to you and say, well, the detail with which the veneers were book matched isn't quite the same as it was on my CGI, so you don't get too many kickings off the back of it. They just kind of fall in love with the dream, which is the whole point of being a designer. It's very theatrical. I think it's important. Little things. So there's a one-point perspective dressing room. This is a project in Kingston, which was a lovely room. I haven't got any photos of any of our work, which maybe I should have done. I've just focused on presentation techniques. Again, so we were selling. So this was a boardroom that we did, and obviously, again in Photoshop, you're just kind of picking out things like the main dining room table. Interior of a helicopter, inevitably every portfolio needs one, you know, an interior of a helicopter. Who doesn't get the chance to do the odd one of these? So this was quite cool, and we launched this at the Monaco Yacht Show this year. And that's a bar, actually, that's it. Hang on, there's a laser here. Just there, that's a bar. So, man off my own heart. And then you can go to kind of detailed shots. Again, you know, these don't take long. They shouldn't take long. They should just have kind of quite a lot of fluidity and energy to them, and this is just how we've articulated a couple of secret drawers into a study area, which was the client bought the whole project just based on this sketch. So, you know, this really does work. And again, curved doors, just going into a dressing room. This was one of a suite of sketches that I did for the first project I sold for Linley. So when I started selling fitted furniture for Linley and designing and selling fitted furniture for Linley, we had nothing. We didn't have, I mean, obviously we had the brand, but we didn't have any past projects at all. We didn't have any samples. We didn't have any pricing. We didn't really have anyone who was going to make it at the time. So I had to generate sales before we had any of that in place, which I did really using this. And there was enough trust that you can generate doing this to create a good relationship, to work with people who will take a chance on you. And for me, that's, you know, that's what it's all about, really. This was another project, which is quite good fun. So you just kind of take away some of the walls, mess about a bit. You know, I mean, a lot of it's pretty technically poor, to be honest with you. But it's kind of got this kind of, hopefully got a bit of flavour to it that people can engage with. And you know, these did work. Again, what I tried to do is, this is a plan of a project I did at Mark Wilkinson, and what it shows is taking the same stylistic cues and actually presenting plans using similar language, so that I think it's really important that whenever anyone sees your work, they know it's yours, even if it's not the best, or it could be better, or it could be this, that, the other. I think if you've got a way of kind of having your identity on your work, people are always going to kind of come back to you, and if they see one of your drawings lying around, it does your personal brand a lot of good. Again, a few bits and pieces. So that's the bar for the penthouses at Battersea Power Station, and a couple of more components from the helicopter, which I just couldn't resist putting into. Sorry. And then things like, you know, obviously this is a study. It's more of the same, really, but it just shows how we do this. And you know, as I say, this is an hour's work. This isn't a lot more. And if you start to become too engrossed with this, I think you lose the energy. So I'm quite keen not to do that. It's getting a bit tedious. That's a yacht called 777. We refurbed the interior for 2 months ago. So that was the bedroom sketches that we did as well.
Alex, can I ask a question?
You may. Thank you.
When you say design like it's going to be thrown away.
Yeah.
Before you start sketching it, do you know what you're going to draw? And then it's just a matter of getting the sketch right,
Yeah.
Or do you refine the design as you go through your versions?
I'd say both happens. I think inevitably, I think there are two things happening concurrently. So you're trying to make the design how you want it to look in your mind's eye, but you're also trying to make a beautiful piece of work. You know, and the two sometimes contradict each other. And also with a sketch, you've got so much license to just. You'll be fine. Just make
someone else to sort that out.
Yeah, that'll be fine. I know a guy who's got a workshop. It's very talented. But I think you've got to have that freedom when you've got a pen and a bit of paper to really, to create your best work. And the more CAD you use, the more specific you get, the more rulers that come into play, the more you lose of the initial idea generation, which is what people come to you for. I don't think they come to you for. I mean, obviously they want it to fit. It's got to work, but what they're coming to a designer for is almost I think it's a theatrical manufactured experience a little bit, because I think you give them what they'd expect a designer experience to be, and I think that's really, really critical. And just ham it up and have fun, and they'll have fun, and the whole thing will be awesome. It's good fun. It is good fun. So this was just slightly more technical, but not massively. Again, using the same process. So this was a house in Brompton Square, which is very, very high value real estate, and it was just a fitted piece of furniture where we hid TV and two concurrent air conditioning systems that both service different parts of the house, all in the joinery. And it was a right bugger, really, to be honest. But the client didn't believe we could do it. Neither did I, to be honest with you, in the early stages. And then I just drew something, and they bought it off the back of a sketch. So I think it goes to show the power, just the power of kind of this kind of communication. We're there. So to be a successful designer, and by that I mean someone who is successful in a different company. It's a very different experience I've had to these guys, because I've always worked for other companies. I've always had kind of a backup and a brand to work with, and then they just kind of kick me out the door and say, go and find people and do stuff and turn it into sales and design some stuff and let us make it. So it's a very different proposition. Bring all of yourself to all of your work. I think that's really, really important. Don't really have off days. Design is it's not really it's not really the kind of profession that you go into as an accountant, where or a lawyer, where you're there to just kind of do billable hours and things like that. It is a passion, and it is something you go into because you really love it. And I don't think there's really an excuse if you're in that kind of profession to come in and say, oh, I feel rubbish today, I can't be bothered, or I'm going to do a rubbish bit of work today because I'm not feeling great. Just every day, just give it everything, just give it absolutely everything. Don't believe anyone who says no, just give it everything. And then understanding what emotional message you want to bring and how to articulate it. So the emotional message I want from my sketch is I want them to look effortless. I don't really want them to be brilliant. I just want them to look as if they just fell out of my head, and that is really engaging with my clients. So that's kind of what I've been working with my style. Practice what you do every day, and if there's one thing that is incredibly hard and really, really important, it's take feedback really, really well. So every time you're told that you're rubbish at stuff, just listen to what people are saying, and quite often they're right. And a real lesson I learned is to take feedback well and act on it changes everything. It changes how far you'll get in your life, because you don't just kind of storm off and say, well, sod them, I'll show them. You literally listen to them, and people are quite often trying to help you when they give you negative advice. It's a really, really important thing. And never forget how bad you are. I'm reminded of this every day. This is one of the reasons I love my wife, actually, because she doesn't hold back, reminding me of all the things I'm incredibly terrible at. Because there's quite a long list, really. And I think that's really important to just kind of, there's so much weirdness in the world of design, and you've only got to walk around Chelsea Design Centre. You were there the other day. It's just such a weird place. The whole world of design is really weird, and there's no place for someone like me in it. It wasn't particularly well educated. I didn't, grow up didn't go to the right school. I didn't have the right friends. But somehow you can, just by being true to yourself and kind of being professional, I think you can drive yourself into that world, and it can be really good fun. So, and the future, really, when it comes to sketching, I think I'm really excited about where products like Wacom tablets are going and where you can draw on screen. It's a personal kind of passion of mine. I think it's really exciting to see where that's going to take us. But I don't know where that's going to be. But I'm excited to see where it will be. And that marks the end of my presentation.